Hello, my name is Nathaniel Skinner. I am the lead designer of Helheim Unbound, a settingless role-playing game system. I am here to talk to you today about how easy it is to create your own creatures. Those who are familiar with other gaming systems, you're probably used to seeing large stat blocks, strength, intelligence, dexterity, etc., having armor class, hit modifiers, a whole bunch of other things that you need to either have a creature already in front of you, or where you need to make up your own and have, in essence, a lot of kind of useless detail in a lot of cases. Helheim being a simplified rule set makes it pretty simple for you to create your own creature. Right here, I've got just a simple Excel worksheet that I've put together. We're currently working on having a form-fillable PDF version made. But you'll see that overall the sheet's pretty easy to use. The middle part of it is what has most of the numbers and things you need to keep track of in the game. There's some space for you to put in special rules. Benefits and hindrances, if this is a creature that you plan on having recurring, like a boss or maybe a dragon or something else, where you want to have a little bit more detail than just boiling it straight into the dice, we have room for benefits and hindrances. If they have any particular resources, either that they use or that your champions, your players, might be able to get. And then lastly, some room for description. We didn't leave too much room for description because we figure you can always write more space. If it's something that we write up, maybe there's a page of description accompanying it, and this is really designed for your short notes for gameplay, anything in particular that you want to capture in the moment. And so I want to walk through this. You can see that the sheet here is split down into the basics, and I'll start with the top left. And this is the number of dice that they roll in combat. Helheim Unbound, you use the same dice for attack and defense, and a creature can have a ranged attack, a melee attack. You might just aggregate it all together. In this case, I'll just start making one up on the spot based on last week's Encounter roleplay episode where they had a dragon. And so I'll start with giving it a name, creatively Dragon Big Fire Breath. In terms of how it makes its attacks, it makes sense that a dragon would have some form of ranged attack since we've already said it's fire breathing. And we'll say that this is a younger dragon, so its breath perhaps isn't quite as potent yet as if this was an elder and ancient worm. And we'll still give it a hefty number of dice because it is a dragon. So we'll say that it has 8 ranged dice. And for melee, a lot of times melee is also looked at most commonly as defense. But this is a dragon. We've already identified it as being big. And we'll say that it has 12 dice in melee. And that's a pretty good number. If you get really lucky, you could crunch a champion in one shot. And that's probably about right if a dragon gets lucky and manages to sink all of its claws into you or, bite you in half, something like that. The next value we have is protection. And protection is basically armor. The way that combat works in Helheim Unbound is it uses a opposed dice roll system. So both the champions and the game master will roll their dice at the same time, and you'll compare the results. It's winner take all. And so whoever has the most hits causes that many wounds. Your primary defense against wounds is your protection. And so let's say that we're rolling, the champion manages to get a lucky hit, causes 6 wounds. Our dragon, again, we've already said it's a little bit younger, we'll give it a protection of 2, and that's equivalent to male armor. And so the dragon has some vulnerable areas that, given its size, a little bit larger, easier to hit. But in our example, where there's 6 hits made, the protection would reduce it down, so the creature only takes 2 wounds. The next area we have is where you can track word for the creature. Word is used for things like re-rolling or adding extra dice to the pool. A lot of the times as the GM, we recommend it as a defensive tool to help prevent the enemy champions from being able to just come in and basically say, okay, use all of the word in one shot, automatically have 8 hits, and roll, oh hey look, I got another hit. I'm tearing apart this creature. And this number can vary. So since it's designed to be defensive, but we want to give the players a little bit of an edge, we'll say that it has 3 per champion. And so this way then, it'll flux up and down. So if you're facing just it's you and your buddy playing, and it only has 1 champion, our dragon will have 3 word. If they're fighting a large gaming group and there's 5 champions, 15 word. So that gives them a pretty good defense, but tilts it a little bit in the champion's favor. We'll leave the top of the blocks blank. That way then you can fill it out or just put in little hash marks for each time you use a word. Now we turn over to health. And Helheim Unbound has a couple different ways that you can do health for creatures. And so I'm going to pull up the rulebook right now. And we will see here that champions, the Game Master, creature creation, page 30. And so page 30 is going to detail some of the different types of creatures we can have. Special rules, creature difficulty, types. And one of the types we have is called a tough. A tough is a single resilient creature. They're particularly resilient and large. They could also be a champion in their own right. And we have in the description here, you think of creatures like giants, dragons, military specification robots, and the like. There's generally 2 ways to design a tough: armored toughs or vital toughs. And so armored toughs rely a lot on their high protection. They may completely disregard attacks. A vital tough, on the other hand, uses large amounts of health to survive, rather than relying solely on their armor. As I said earlier, this is a younger dragon. Scales haven't fully hardened, so we're going to go with a vital tough on this one. And we recommend that they should have 30 or more health and protection between 0 to 2. And we're going to go with 2, as we already said, because the scales are hardening. This isn't a juvenile worm. It's not very young. It's passing into its adult stages now. And so we will drop that back in, and over on health. So 30 health for a young dragon seems like a decent amount, but I also want this to be a bit more of a challenge, especially since we've erred on the champion side by giving them a little bit more word. And so we're going to say it has 40 health. Again, there's a box up here where you can add in any of that information that you'd like, or track it however you'd like. And then we also have a column over here for tracking benefits and hindrances. And so there's different ways and different constructs for benefits and hindrances, depending on if this is a creature that would get enraged as it takes more wounds, or if it is like most things and becomes weakened through blood loss. And let's do something different for this dragon. So it's a dragon. It's been around long enough to start reaching its teenage years. And I think it's not going to get too serious until after it's taken some wounds, because perhaps it hasn't faced many champions yet, so it's used to being the lord of its own roost. And so what we'll drop in here is we'll say 0 to 10. It has no particular benefit or hindrance. Then from 11 to 20, we'll say it gets a +1 benefit. So that means when it has 11 to 20 wounds, it's going to get +1 to those dice pools. So it's going to be angry, its fires are burning a little bit hotter, it's going to be striking out more strongly. And then, once it gets beyond 20, I think there's a chance our dragon might think about leaving the combat or trying to escape. And we'll say that at that point, 20 to 30, it's becoming preoccupied. We'll give it -2. And so that way then its ranged attack will be an 8. We'll go from 8 down to 6, and the melee down from 12 to 10. So still a very potent combatant, but one at this point that's a little bit more distracted. Some of the wounds have actually caused scales to fall out or struck vital areas, and the dragon's feeling pain. And then for the last item, we'll say for 30 or more, it'll drop down to a -4. And so at that point, the dragon is still capable of defending itself, but it's really looking to get out of dodge. So right here in just a couple minutes, we've created a dragon. We've come up with a little bit of the thought process, some of the narrative about how it works. We've laid out how many dice it'll have in attack and defense, how much protection, word, talked about the reasoning behind how much health to give it, and then laid out a profile for how it gets stronger after it's been wounded a little bit, and then how it starts to get weaker as it's looking to escape. In terms of special rules, flight makes sense. This is a dragon. It has wings. It will fly. We will give it fire breathing. And this, we'll say, is a flame-based, fire-based attack. That'll help remind you in case there's any wooden structures or if how you want to describe injuries from it to the champions. And we'll say that its breath can go about 30 to 40 foot in a cone. And so, based on how the theater of the mind is going and how the champions are positioned, that'll help you know if you're making an attack that is ranged, who should be within the arc. And in terms of benefits and hindrances, there's nothing in particular for this dragon at this point that we'd want to add in. The first time that it's been driven off, so when it reaches 40 health, I'd make a strong argument that this dragon comes back again. And at that point, you might note in a particular injury that the champions might notice. Whoever got it to 40 wounds, have them play out the scene as they drive the dragon off, but make a note down of what happened. Did they get a wing partially torn? Did they lose a scales? Perhaps they have a torn snout or lost one of their primary incisor fangs, missing a claw, part of the tail cut off, anything like that to help make it more recognizable, and then let it play into the game a little bit through having a new hindrance. So just for purposes of showing you, we'll say that a hindrance is a torn scale, -1 protection. So the next time, all else being equal, that your champions see this dragon, it'll have -1 protection. In terms of resources, the dragon doesn't have anything we care about as far as humans go. Since it was a torn scale, I'll just jot down a dragon scale. So if they run up, this would just be an item that this dragon can drop. Think about how you want it to play out in your game. Lastly, for the description, we will say winged lizard with amber scales. We'll say it's about 20 feet long. Wingspan say 60 feet on the wingspan. And we will say that it smells of ash. And that's about all that we need for this dragon. So that was a quick run through of how you create a creature, in this case a big, vital, tough young dragon. And we will formally call this a adolescent dragon. So with that, again, this is Nat Skinner. The game system that we're designing this dragon for is Helheim Unbound. It is currently live on Kickstarter. If you go to the Kickstarter page, because you're watching this video later, it will otherwise be available through DriveThru RPG. Thank you, and have a good day.